Okay, so the next part of the outline, Roman numeral 3, is we're talking about the 5 steps of practicing homeopathy. So I'll just go through the 5 steps and then we'll talk about them in detail. So the 5 steps of practicing homeopathy are: number 1, case taking; number 2, case analysis; number 3, prescribing the simillimum, or the remedy that's most similar; number 4, administering the remedy; and then number 5, the following up and the case management. So in terms of case taking, I've got some pages referenced here: E24, C21, C227 to 28, C231 to 244. There's sample cases in these books and they describe case taking. We can use the case of the little girl with flu, which we think could possibly have been swine flu, we're not sure, that I've recently treated. So we can use that case to illustrate these 5 points. So I'll just read the case and then we can kind of talk about it. So the mother of a 4-year-old girl phoned me after I had left the office. I returned the call within a few hours while I was traveling by car out of town. The woman's daughter had a fever of 103.5 and had a persistent cough. The fever and cough would get worse after falling asleep, whether it was at night or during a daytime nap. The cough was accompanied by a tickling sensation in the pit of the throat, which is right here, in the notch, and would wake the child every few minutes, preventing her from sleeping for any significant length of time. She felt normal or slightly chilly. Her chest felt hot. So when to her, it felt like her chest felt hot to her, not necessarily to the touch. And she felt warm with the fever. So when she was having a fever, she got a little warm. Her face, normal color of the face and body. She was sneezing 1 to 2 times every minute with clear mucus. The tongue was coated white with a red tip, with no sore throat. The child was asking for large quantities of cold water and seemed to desire the attention of her parents more than usual. Being in the car, my computerized repertory and materia medica were temporarily unavailable, so I prescribed 1 dose of the homeopathic remedy that seemed at the time to best fit the characteristic symptoms of the child. I instructed the mother to then monitor her daughter's symptoms and fever and send me an email regarding her progress within the next 2 to 3 hours. When I checked my email, I was happy to see that the patient's fever elevated slightly within a few minutes of taking the remedy, and then she fell soundly asleep for 2 hours, despite having napped earlier that day. So this was not time for her, this was not her nap time, but she fell asleep anyway. And she fell asleep without coughing. When she awoke a couple hours later, her fever had dropped to 101 and the cough was still much better. I instructed the mother to continue to administer the remedy on an as-needed basis, meaning repeat it if the cough or fever worsened, and also to give the remedy before bedtime until her daughter was close to 100% better. So give it before bedtime every night until her daughter was essentially better. Upon follow-up several days later, the mother informed me that her little girl had made a complete recovery within 2 to 3 days. Okay, so case taking. Bunch of different considerations here. The first one you want to consider is contributing causes. So what is the cause of this disease? Well, in the case of this fever, there was nothing mentioned in the case, so that's a mistake. It should be, even in the case of a flu or something, it should be found out. Was there an emotional upset that triggered it? Was she exposed to a cold draft, or was there another illness? Was it a physical trauma? Did she just fall and hit her head the day before? All these things can make a difference, and they're to be considered. Secondly, the onset. So, meaning, was it gradual? Did the symptoms come on gradual, or did they come on slowly? Again, there's nothing in the case to indicate that was asked for. Could have been because I was in the car and wasn't in the office and was just trying to do my best under the circumstances. But that can play a role, because there are certain remedies that are characterized by sudden, violent onset, and others that are characterized as like gradual, slow onset. So that makes a difference. The characterization of the symptoms. So what are the symptoms exactly? did a good job there. The cough, the fever, what does it feel like? Where exactly does it hurt? It being very exact with the location and the sensations. Under Castro's book on page 21, she kind of makes the point of, more general terms, asking the questions like, what if you walk into the room, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you feel? What are you hearing? So when I ask a patient over the phone, what is your child, describe what's going on. These are the things you need to be aware of all the senses. Is there a smell coming from, the nose or the mouth or the body? What is the person doing? Are they sitting there calmly, or are they pacing around anxiously? Does the skin feel hot or cold to the touch? Do you hear any crying? Are they breathing? Or is there anything unusual that way? The next thing is considering modalities, and these are very, very helpful in prescribing. So modalities meaning, what are the factors that are making these symptoms better or worse? So it could be time, like time of day or night. And you want to try to distinguish between circumstances versus time. So if someone says, well, I'm always better at 5 o'clock, well, maybe that's because that's when you're done with work and you feel better. Or so ways to take that out of the equation is asking, is it the same on the weekends or if you're on vacation versus at work? Or what's happening when you're feeling better? Is there something habitual that you're doing, or is it really just that time? Another factor could be temperature, change of temperature, but not just change of temperature. Is it going from hot to cold, or cold to hot, or spring to fall, or fall to, you don't go from spring to fall, but summer to fall, fall to winter, what seasons, what changes, being outside versus inside, these kinds of things. Same thing with the weather kind of goes along with that. As far as bathing goes, does bathing make it better or worse? Cold bathing or hot bathing, or taking a shower or taking a bath? How does rest affect it? How does motion affect it? Not just motion, is it slow motion or violent motion, or the motion of going from sitting to standing, or going from laying in the bed to standing up out of the bed? All those things make a difference. Position, lying, sitting, standing, walking. If we're talking about lying, are we talking on the stomach, on the left side or the right side, which is different, or on the back? The posture, the activities, touch, so touch, light touch, hard touch, pressure, light pressure, hard pressure. Eating, does eating make it better or worse? During, before, after, same with drinking, cold drinks, warm drinks. Sleeping, during sleep, before sleep, if it's not enough sleep, if it's too long of a sleep, do these things affect the symptoms? And emotions, and specifically what emotions. The most common thing people tell me is, it's worse from stress, or it's worse if I get upset. But stress is not an emotion, and upset is not an emotion. So you need to keep probing until you get what it at the actual emotion. So when someone's describing, it's worse when I'm stressed, and it's the stress of work. Like today, I was stressed at work. And so if you get that person, the patient, to think about that time and that specific event, and continue to ask them questions, so they're relaying it, they're starting to almost relive it a little bit, and then you can interrupt and say, what's the emotion that you're feeling right now as you're thinking about this event? Because sometimes when it's happened in the past, they don't make the connection of what the emotion is, but when you get them really talking about it and reliving it, re-experiencing it, they'll have an easier time coming up with a specific emotion. Emotion meaning jealousy, grief, anger, sadness, disappointment, discouragement, loneliness, hopelessness, despair. These are all emotions. Guilt, anxiety.